I think showing art on TV is something that is completely underrated. It's seeing art on your phone or on your computer is very different than a really, really high-end, beautiful TV that, I think we kind of underestimate our TVs and even our projectors, like seeing that blown up like that is really impactful. It's definitely not being in person with the work, but I think it's just gives a lot of artists the opportunity to share their work in a new, really cool way. And it also gives people the chance to constantly have new art in their home. If you have, I always say like having white walls is the worst thing in my opinion, because it's just so boring. So if you have a TV, you can have art. And yes, definitely a lot of emotion goes into my job, but also a lot of my logical, more A-type side with actually getting projects from start to finish. So it's definitely a yin yang of, you know.
Fascinated. I'm absolutely fascinated. I was giggling there a little bit when you said about having blank walls, and I agree. Walls are there to carry messages in our home, isn't it? Of art, of what moves us, and um, coming back to circle in some of the points that you raised about seeing art in galleries, absolutely. I personally recall an experience of visiting, if I'm saying this correctly, the Uffizi gallery in Italy, and I think that was sponsored by the Medici family, um, and it had the works of the old masters, and just absolutely, I couldn't believe it. Just couldn't believe it. The work that was right in front of me, from Leonardo da Vinci onwards, and to Michelangelo's work, and it was a very humbling experience. And even the structure of the gallery itself, I think in art galleries there's a certain aura, there's a certain atmosphere. You kind of absorb the work, and perhaps your own self is being absorbed in the process as well, as being part of the audience. So absolutely agree with you there. And then you kind of talked about, the various instinctual, emotional, and logical processes that go into when you're sort of looking at art, and in your curating the work, or the collection, for instance, and really admire. It sort of sounds like you're sort of working towards a movement to really move people with good quality, meaningful, in-depth art, which makes them think. Now, what are some of the challenges of being an art curator?
Yeah. I love what you said about the Uffizi Gallery. I absolutely love Florence, and I spent my 25th birthday there. And yeah, it's just insane to, see the David in person and see all these works that you imagine a certain size, and then you get there and it's completely blows you away. Yeah, kind of pivoting to your last question. The challenges of being an art curator definitely come with balancing artist expectations. I think we live in a world where we're constantly saturated with images on our phone every day, and there's so many opportunities that come up, but a lot of the times I'm not the final decision maker. And bringing an artist for a project, I might be absolutely obsessed with an artist, and the team that makes the final call ends up not choosing them. That's really hard for me. We just did a project where we spent months curating something, and at the last second, one of the artists was the selection was cut in half, and that's really disappointing. I think there are still a lot of gatekeepers in the art world, as much as I am trying to change that, and as much as I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to completely change in the art world. I mean, we already feel it, but I feel like, I don't know, it just seems like the world is moving at a pace with technology and with everything that's happening, that art kind of needs to catch up. And I've felt it, and I think we are going to continue to feel it, but I think the next 10 years are going to be insane, and I'm really excited about it personally. But at the same time, I think yeah, there's a lot to balance with artists. And I've managed artists before, and I think it's a really, really tough job to be a manager in any capacity. I've spoken to people who do music management, and managing artists is amazing. But it's also kind of like being a therapist. You have to be there for artists when they're not feeling their best, and you have to kind of manage getting them to complete projects. And a lot of times, we're all human, we're all just trying to survive and do our best, and a lot of times that can be really tricky. I think with art curation, what I've noticed, and with work, the artists I work with, is that being transparent and being a really genuine person goes a long way in any career, but especially when you're working with other people, being really upfront about what a project is going to look like. So, to anyone that is interested in working with artists, I think saying, hey, this is not going to be like, especially with hospitality projects, they sometimes take 6 months to a year, sometimes 2 years. And it's like saying, this is how long it's going to take. But the more we work on it, the more, it's an actual possibility. And also, just bringing opportunities to artists that sometimes they might not be interested in. It's a tricky balancing act, but it's definitely really rewarding when a project gets completed. So I always feel like really, excited and happy about it, but definitely it's not a straight line in any capacity. There's a lot of work involved and a lot of late nights and